Hi you guys, welcome back to another day of Vlogmas, and today this is the last episode that I will be providing visually of my podcast, Blooming Roses. Throughout this past month, as you would have seen, I've been providing the visual version of the different interviews of the guests, and it's definitely been an incredible opportunity to interview these different guests, and I just wanted to give you guys a little taste of different people that I interview on my podcast and give you guys an option to see their episodes visually. But again, you can listen to the audio versions of all of those episodes on my podcast, Blooming Roses, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. Today's guest is very, very special to me, and I wanted to make sure that I timed this episode close to Christmas because that is actually when I had met this guest. This guest is Pia Hamilton. She is an ensemble member of The Lion King on Broadway. I had gone to New York City in 2014 for my Make-A-Wish, and it was back actually around Christmas. It was like the 24th to 27th or something like that, or maybe it's the 26th. I don't know, but it was around Christmas. And I gotta go and see The Lion King and go behind the scenes. That was my wish. And the reason why I had chosen The Lion King was because it was the first Broadway musical I had ever seen, which is what had started my love of Broadway. And meeting Pia Hamilton was just an incredible opportunity, and I've been blessed to be able to stay in contact with her over the years. So I'm very excited to share this interview with you guys, and you get to learn a little bit more about her. All right, well, hi Pia, and welcome to the Blooming Roses podcast. I'm so excited to have you as a guest.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you virtually.
Yeah. But for those who do not know who you are, do you mind sharing like a quick background of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Pia Hamilton. I currently am an ensemble dance member in The Lion King on Broadway. Unfortunately, Broadway is closed right now, but I've been in the show for 7 years now. So, yeah.
For the listeners, and a lot of people don't know this, but I had actually met you back in 2014. My Make-A-Wish was to go see The Lion King on Broadway, New York, and possibly go behind the scenes and maybe meet a few Broadway actors. And I was able to go December of 2014, which was very special because The Lion King was the first Broadway show that I had ever seen back when I was very young. So it was very special for me. And how long have you been participating or being a part of people's wishes for a Make-A-Wish?
Um, well, since I've been in The Lion King, we kind of rotate around different cast members. They whoever wants to do wishes within the cast can volunteer, and then they basically just rotate through
Mm-hmm.
us. So every time you wish, the next person in line will be the person to do that. So I've been doing that pretty much the whole time I've been in the show. But prior to that, back for those listeners that want to know a little bit of my background, I used to many years ago be in the show Barney and Friends. Way back when. But we actually did wishes back then too, where kids and family members could come onto the set and watch part of the show and meet Barney and meet the cast and be there for a shooting day. So I've
That's
had
so
I
cool.
guess a relationship my whole life almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember my wish was very special. I was definitely very in awe and starstruck. I had a loss of words, which is normal whenever anything relating to Broadway. But to go behind the scenes in my favorite Broadway show was truly special, and I don't think I said many words because I was just in so much shock. Uh,
They're great. It's always a treat for everyone. I think it's a cool experience. I mean, I remember the first time I even went on backstage for my first rehearsal, I was blown away, and I was already
mhm.
casted in the show and it blew my mind.
Do you mind sharing a little bit of what your journey was like getting the role that you have? Because your role is very specific in the show for those that do not know.
hmm Yeah, I auditioned for the show 5 or 6 times in the span of about 2.5 years. Um, I would make it to the end or almost the end every single time that I would audition, meaning like I would make it through all the cuts until they put you on what they call the list.
Hmm.
But in a long running show like Lion King, there's always someone already cast,
Hmm.
in that spot. So you basically have to wait for that cast member to leave or to move on before that spot opens up. And because of my height and my ethnicity, the casting director told me I could only do one spot in the whole show. So I had to basically wait for that one spot to open up, and just hope and pray that it would be, in a time that I was still dancing and I was available. Because in a long running show like that, sometimes cast members will stay for years upon years. It's not,
Hmm.
it's especially in The Lion King, it's not unlikely that there's someone that's been there for a decade. And like myself, I've been there for 7 years now. So, there's probably someone like me that's auditioning for my spot that, is not unfortunately getting in right now because I'm still there. So,
Yeah.
it's a lot of perseverance, it's a lot of hard work, but it has a lot to do with timing too.
Hmm. What was that moment like when you finally got that role?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I've told you this story or not, but I actually got the role through an email. They didn't call me. I was always expecting and always looking for my phone for that New York number to call. I was living in Chicago at the time. And they actually emailed me because I think that they were putting up the show in Australia at the time. So there was a big time difference.
Hmm.
So my kind of routine in the mornings is I wake up and I usually lay in bed and read my emails, my general emails and things. For those that are listening, I actually own a dance studio in Chicago as well. So I have a lot of emails about my dance studio and stuff. So I usually just like to sift through them in the morning before I even get out of bed.
Hmm.
Um, kind of see what my day is going to be like, which ones I have to reply to and whatnot. And yeah, and so I was just sifting through, going to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then I just popped onto the Lion King one, and I read it, and I was actually thinking it was a joke at first. I was like, I don't think is this one of my friends playing a joke on me? Like, who would write an email, about it? And then, I looked at the subject and I looked at the email, who the email was from, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. And I remember just jumping out of bed and running in circles in my apartment and screaming and crying. And then I called my husband, obviously, like right away. He was the first person I called. He was already at work, and I was crying and I couldn't get any words out. And he thought something like bad happened because I was just
Hmm.
crying. It was like, and kind of hyperventilating. He was, you okay? Is our family okay? Like, what's going on? And then I told him. So it was a very surreal experience.
Yeah. I remember you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a Broadway actress, and I remember there were several moments of people telling me that it's going to be a hard journey to be able to get to Broadway. Or I mean, you can audition, but you'll hear a lot of no's as well. How did you manage like through that? Like still hoping and dreaming that you would get either this role or another role or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm a firm believer in, if you I have this kind of motto that I say to everyone, even when I do like Q&As for different groups and things, um, say dream big and then dream specific.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my overall goal was, to be a professional dancer, to hopefully be on Broadway someday. And then my specific goal was to be in The Lion King.
Mm.
And, I'm a firm believer that, if you work hard enough and you put it out there, that it's going to happen, that it will manifest. And and I think that the reason why I believe so strongly in that is because fortunately it has happened for me
Mhm.
in most of my life, but I have also worked very, very, very hard for everything I have received. Nothing has necessarily come easy to me.
Mhm.
I have been in the business since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And yes, faced a lot of rejection in acting and in dance. And even with Lion King, even though wasn't necessarily a no, but I wasn't getting cast. I auditioned, like I said, 5 or 6 times, and a lot of times by then people would just be like, "Okay, I'm moving on to the next thing." But I just had this feeling um, that it was going to happen at some point, and I
Mm.
wanted to keep showing my face, and I wanted to keep showing that I wanted this. And they also recognized that too. The casting
Mhm.
director and the supervisors there, they even said something in one of my auditions, like, "Wow, you come all the way from Chicago every single time. Like, you keep coming back." And,
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference too, because then they know that this is someone that's going to work hard, and
Mhm.
hopefully will continue to work hard.
Mhm.
So it shows a character as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, the business can be hard and it can be tough. And there's, of course, you're going to feel like your self esteem go down every now and then because you're hearing all these no's and no's and no's and no's. Um, but I remember one time I was dancing with a company and I was apprenticing, working for no money and dancing all day long and getting kind of down. And I remember one of the dancers that was actually in the company at the time, and that was apprentice, looked at me and said, "You know what? It only takes one director,
Mm.
to like you or to whatever." But he said that when he said, it only takes one director, it made such a difference to me because I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Sometimes there's just things that aren't for you,
Mhm.
and sometimes there are things that are right. And I think it's just finding what you know, not only that you're capable of, because I think that you can always strive for greatness,
Mhm.
um, but just being open to these endless possibilities and these endless people that you're going to meet, because it only takes one person. And I
Mhm.
also always tell my kids, my personal kids, but my dance kids that I teach, that it's really important to be a good person because you never know when you're going to see these people again. So that
Mhm.
person that might have been your dance colleague 2 years ago might now be the director that's going to be that one director that you need to like propel your career. You just never know.
Yeah. What has been your most memorable experience from performing in The Lion King?
My most memorable, did you say?
Mhm. Your most memorable.
I would probably say Lion King's 20th anniversary. We had a 20th
Mm.
anniversary performance for Lion King's birthday on Broadway. And it was the most amazing time I think I've ever had on stage. The energy in the room was nothing like I've ever experienced
Mm.
because the whole audience was made up of uh, friends and family, and then all of the creative directors from the show, and kind of like big wigs and things like that as well,
Yeah.
but also um, former cast members too. So it was
Wow.
really cool. I think almost all original cast was there, and then people that have ever done it in the past, anytime have ever been on Broadway, they were invited to come. So there was a lot of them in the audience as well. Heather Headley was there.
Mhm.
It was a great, great, great show. I mean, they were standing up, screaming and yelling. I could barely even hear a singing circle vibe because the room was just, I mean, it was roaring. It was really roaring. It was so
Wow.
cool. And then at the end of that show, Elton John actually came out and sang a rendition of Circle of Life with us. So that was so cool.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
What would you have told your younger self when you were like starting to pursue dance and to where you are now, what would you tell your younger self?
You know what I would think? I think I would tell my younger self just to keep going, um, to keep going and to keep working hard. Which I feel like is to be honest, something that I always did. But I think also to not sweat all the small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would get down on myself if I messed something up in a performance, or
Mm-hmm.
and I still do now. But when you end up doing a show over 2,000 times, you realize, okay, maybe it's not such a big deal that maybe I fell one night or I did this one
Mm-hmm.
night. Um, not to be so hard on myself, I think, because I think it's good to have goals, and good to put that pressure on you to a certain extent. But yeah, sometimes I would come down on myself pretty hard, I think, and so I think that that would be something that I would say, is not to be so hard on myself, I guess.
Yeah. What has this year been like for you? Because obviously with Broadway shutting down, it's, I mean, completely changed everything. How have you been able to um I guess continue to keep up your stamina for when you do return to the Lion King, and also still keeping that good mental health that, for when everything kind of becomes normal again?
Yeah, good question. I think like anyone else, and probably everyone else, this pandemic has, emotionally, it's been kind of a roller coaster. We've
Mhm.
all had our ups and downs with it. I will say that I have appreciated um, the time I've had.
Mm.
One thing that I never had when I was in the show was time, because I
Mhm.
was always doing the show, or I was working on my dance studio, and like I didn't have time. I had little time for anything else. Even
Mhm.
my husband, we would be hanging out from like midnight to 2 a.m. because that's the only time we had together,
Mhm.
every night. And now, I get to spend time with him. I get to work on my studio more, and I've been revamping and working and replanning things for that, which has been really great.
Mhm.
So I feel like I've just had time to focus my energies in different places that I didn't get to before. So that has been a definite positive. Um,
Mhm.
as far as like keeping up my work, my stamina, and my body for dance and everything, it's been a challenge. I'm not gonna lie, just because as a dancer, we need to have room to dance, and we need to have a studio. And we don't have that really, unfortunately, right now.
Mhm.
I have been renting out a studio every once in a while with me and just maybe one other friend, to move around a little bit. But
Mhm.
other than that, otherwise I will, I'll do my cardio, and I'll do a ballet bar every single day at home. Um, but it's probably going to be a shock to the system when we first go back. Things like jumping that we can't do every day, I can't do in my tiny apartment on the fourth floor,
Mhm.
with people below me, so things like that. So I'm hoping that, uh, at some point, if safely, obviously, if the pandemic allows for us to start taking class again and things like that, here in New York, then I would want to hopefully be able to do that more, so that I can get back into it a little bit more than I am right now. But I'm doing as much as I can, I guess, at this
Yeah.
moment with where we. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a process for everyone. I think we haven't done the show, and how many months has it been? 8 or so now.
Yeah.
Usually we would only get one day off the show a week. So it's a big change, but
Mhm.
yeah, we'll have to get back into it again.
What would be your advice for a dancer or even someone aspiring to go on Broadway or do other theatrical things elsewhere?
Yeah. Well, I think, pieces of advice that I always give people, was one of them I touched on before, is to be kind and be a good person, because that will follow you
Mhm.
everywhere. Um, I have received numerous jobs because of my work ethic and because I believe that I'm, easy to work with, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing I always tell dancers is to do your homework. Um, know what you're auditioning for. Don't go into an audition not prepared. If
Mm-hmm.
you are auditioning for a show, maybe it's something that you listen to the music or you get a feel for the show. Sometimes, and I know sometimes people are like, I don't want to know anything about it beforehand, which is fine too if that's your that's your way of doing things. But know enough about what you're doing to know how you're supposed to dress and how you should wear your hair and
Mm-hmm.
what for singers, what kind of song you should pick out. Like, should it be a contemporary song? Should it be a pop song? Just know do your homework and then know, as I always say, know your audience, know who you are going to be auditioning for, and maybe what they're looking for too. Research other shows that maybe a choreographer has done so you can kind of look into their style. Might not be the same, but you can get a feel, an idea of movement quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important to come prepared also just for your mental state so you feel more confident, but then you show up knowing and seeming prepared to the directors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely say that from meeting you, you're one of the many things that definitely made that experience just so memorable. And to this day, my parents and I still talk about it, going behind the Lion King and meeting you and meeting everyone else who I'd met. And it was just definitely a dream come true to go behind the scenes of just the show that brought my love of Broadway to life. And I can't thank you enough. And it's been very special to also still stay in touch with you over the past few years.
No, I've loved it. I love when you give me updates and I love hearing about your success. And I'm so proud of you for all that you've done, in the past few years that we've known each other too. Even with this podcast, I think it's amazing that you're just reaching out and getting your voice heard as well. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. Um, but do you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share before we wrap this up? And do you have any? I tend to ask people if they have any socials or anything like they would like to share.
Um, Not really. Yeah, I mean, I've had a great time talking with you, and if anything, I hope this can keep inspiring people that are hopefully listening to you, and especially in this time right now where there's maybe not as much going on, and things can seem a little bit monotonous or day to day. Staying in your house and everything, like to just inspired and keep working hard because at at some point it's going to pay off. Maybe it won't be tomorrow, but to just keep continuing to follow whatever dream you may have and pursuing, and that dream can change, all the time, and that's okay too. And just keep working hard, and at some point all of it will come to fruition at some point.
Mm-hmm. So that is it for today's interview and for today's Vlogmas. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the interview. It was definitely an amazing time to be able to sit down and listen and talk to Pia and catch up with her. And again, the audio versions are available on the podcast, Blooming Roses. That is just a taste of what my podcast is like. If you guys want to go and subscribe to it, you definitely can. There are a lot more amazing guests that are coming up in the future, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear their episodes and hear their stories. Each interview is so special to me, and I'm incredibly thankful to have had the opportunity to interview who I've been able to interview. And I don't know if I can really pick a favorite episode out of all of them because each guest is so unique and each guest has had an impact on my life for a different reason. And I love hearing everybody's stories and just the encouragement that they've brought me, and I'm incredibly thankful for it. So again, there are a lot more amazing guests coming up in the future. The video version will not be available, but it is with the audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. So be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast and share it with others so that they can hear more of these stories. And definitely go back and listen to other people's stories if you haven't heard them before.